So I'd like to welcome to Consciousness Central Cassie Vieten, who is president of the Institute of Noetic Sciences in Petaluma, and Shamini Jain, who is founder of the Consciousness and Healing Initiative and is an assistant professor at UC San Diego. Cassie and Shamini, welcome to Consciousness Central.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
A delight to see you both. So tell me something about you. You gave a workshop at the beginning of the week on the Consciousness and Healing Initiative. What is that?
Well, the Consciousness and Healing Initiative is a collaborative accelerator to forward the science and practice of healing, and IONS is a key partner. Cassie is actually a founding advisor of the initiative, and it really began kind of organically because a number of us were getting together and exploring these areas of frontier aspects of consciousness and how they intersect with the healing process. And what we learned as we began dialoguing is, we all have certain sets of skills, talents, and there was the great need to scientists in the area who were really interested in these frontier areas of research. Now, of course, as you know, IONS is a leader in that field. But we became aware of other scientists as well in major universities, tenured professors, other places who, were very successful, for example, in getting NIH funding for their more mainstream work. But they had these closet interests, if you will, and some of them not even closet, in areas of consciousness and healing, including biofield science, exploring spirituality and consciousness, in more frontier ways. So we all really got together with a number of different organizations, IONS, the Chopra Foundation, Miraglow Foundation, at the time Samueli Institute, and others, and we said, what can we do if we come together and collaborate to really forward this? And so that's how the initiative was born. So the workshop that we did was really nice because it was multidisciplinary, which I think is a key, a key focus of the initiative, and IONS is another example of how multidisciplinary science and practice can flourish. During the workshop, we explored these areas of biofield science and frontier aspects of consciousness from scientific perspectives, practice perspectives, and technology perspectives. And we, explored what it means to feel that. What does that mean experientially? How does it integrate into my daily life? So these are some of the areas we explored together.
Excellent. So Cassie, you're coming from IONS. That sounds right up your street. Tell us how this all got started.
Yeah, well, IONS for a very long time has been a leader in mind-body medicine, and IONS funded the first studies on meditation, for example, and the health benefits with Herb Benson at Harvard, and was key in starting the field of psychoneuroimmunology by hosting several meetings with psychologists, immunologists, and biologists who hadn't been speaking before, brain scientists who hadn't been really talking to each other prior to that. And then also has been a pioneer in concepts around distant healing or energy healing, and whether there's some way to investigate those scientifically. And so over the years we've made a lot of strides forward, but what we've noticed, like Shamini was saying, is that there are all these relatively small groups all over the world who are making incremental progress with really not enough funding to do these tiny studies with small sample sizes and not always adequate controls and all of this stuff. Still making progress and kind of fighting the good fight and being courageous despite a lot of backlash from the conventional medical community. So we thought that we could leverage our scientists and our educators by joining with the Consciousness and Healing Initiative, so that the idea being that if we all work together, we might make a bigger impact than if we all work separately.
Can you talk about some of the, what would you say, are they called modalities or techniques, or what actually would be the substance of the initiative?
So I think the question is, what have we been up to for the last few years, and what do we know about these studies of frontier aspects of consciousness and healing? Well, one of the areas that we've been focused on for the last several years has been in this area of biofield science, which is the study of energy and information as it applies to health, essentially. We can use fancier terms, but that's essentially it. And here's what we know so far. You've already heard a lot of talks probably at the conference this year on things like non-invasive brain stimulation, right? The use of bioelectricity, essentially, use electricity and magnetism to work with the body to facilitate some kind of a response in the body, right? That's one aspect of biofield science. And then there are these others that we call biofield therapies, which are things like Reiki, healing touch, and therapeutic touch that make us begin to question, you know, can we explain the intersection of consciousness and healing in purely physicalist terms, right? So the study of things like biofield therapies in conjunction with some of these more electromagnetic aspects of biofield science really help us to, one, you know, explore what do we really know about consciousness and its relevance in terms of the health process? Do we need to evolve our models of the body and how they work? Is there an intersection between some of the ancient knowledge that has been put forth in systems like Ayurveda and Chinese medicine? Can we understand those from a biofield science perspective, and what does the data say? So in a nutshell, you know, I won't bore you with summarizing all the data for biofield science, but I'll say that, you know, we've really taken a multidisciplinary approach to that. And one of the first things that we did as a group was we held a meeting in biofield science where we brought together healers, we brought together medical professionals, you know, MDs, nurses, others. We brought together physicists, psychoneuroimmunologists, biophysicists to really explore this area in detail. What does the data say? And an outcome of that was a publication called Biofield Science and Healing, which is a peer-reviewed publication, a special issue that's published in Global Advances Health and Medicine, which is freely available to everyone and can be accessed through our website, which is www.chi.is. So that's part of what we've been doing, and we explored those areas today and, you know, during the conference.
Excellent. And Cassie, IONS has been in this for a while, but perhaps not so much from, this sounds to me a little bit almost like more of a tech approach of using biofeedback and transcranial ultrasound, things like that. And then there might be another approach which is more to do with working with other types of energy or healing modalities, or which might be more what you've been doing?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think Shamini was actually getting at the point that we are interested in these devices as scaffolding for people's personal healing or healing of other people. But what we're really interested in is the role of consciousness itself in healing. And so these devices are possibly training wheels or, like I said, scaffolding for that. And they may just work on a very materialist, physicalist way. But noetic, as you know, is the inner world, and science is the outer world. And so what we're really looking at is how does intention, attention, perception, thinking, belief influence your own body, influence you when you're in a healing interaction as a physician or a healing practitioner, and possibly even have an influence at a distance and maybe even across time, which is the more controversial aspect of it. And I think what's been really exciting for me is I've been really interested in that intention, attention, belief, perception, worldview. And this is about also running energy. You know, a lot of people will subjectively report that they have felt a flush or a flow of energy, or, you know, there's these wisdom traditions that talk about the meridians and the chakras, and an energy body that's almost infuses the physical body, and that the idea is that the physical body may in fact be healed by doing some sort of a healing of this purported energy body. And so that's, I think, what we're really interested in looking at is there such a thing as that energy body? Are there interventions that affect that energy body? And is there an actual infusion or relationship between the energy body and the physical body, whether in reality or perceived?
So we might ask ourselves where the data actually lies with these consciousness and healing practices like Reiki, healing touch, therapeutic touch, and others. And one of the outcomes, you know, in reviewing the evidence, we've done a couple of systematic reviews, and we have a really nice infographic that depicts visually where the evidence lies on our website. So people are free to come and check it out. You could even get to the exact papers and, you know, figure out exactly how we did the review. But the upshot is we know that these biofield therapies, these consciousness and healing, spiritual healing practices, have been effective in reducing pain, which is a huge problem, as you know, across the world, not just in the US. There's evidence to suggest they're effective in dementia in terms of mitigating symptoms in other populations as well. There is evidence suggesting that these therapies have physiological effects that are beyond placebo. They're animal studies, they're cell studies, but there's this much data. I mean, in comparison to, for example, we talked about technology, how much money is being poured into these technologies that we create that are outside of ourselves, because we have this idea that we have to project our consciousness outside in technology to heal ourselves back, right? The question is why we aren't investing in ourselves and investing in this kind of research where we can really examine the role of consciousness in the healing process in a deeper way, because there is some evidence suggesting we should really be looking there. So the initiative is, you know, part of the reason for our existence is to galvanize support for funding these scientists to do this work.
Excellent. Obviously our culture, the Western model, Western medicine traditionally has been very skeptical of anything that goes beyond the clearly physical, and so you're entering an area which they feel a bit suspicious of, so they need that data, don't they, to really kind of reassure them, shall we say. You did mention one thing that I find interesting, and the word that gets thrown about a lot is this word placebo. And placebo is a fascinating thing because it's sort of, people dismiss it and they say, oh, well, that's just the placebo effect. But I always sort of think, well, wait a minute, don't just, you know, what is this placebo effect? This is a very powerful effect. We shouldn't ignore it. And there may be far more to it than, you know, it maybe needs reterming, rebranding with a whole new, you know, what is it really? Do you have an opinion on what placebo really is?
Well, an early paper I worked on was called Redefining Placebo, and what it really was speaking to is placebo is probably the best proof we have for mind-body healing. So there are two types of placebo effects. One is where you have an inactive or, you know, purportedly inactive intervention, and then it makes you believe that you feel better even though you don't really feel better or you don't really get better. And then there's the second aspect of the placebo effect, which is where people do have objective measures of getting better just through their own expectancy. And both are really important because obviously if you perceive yourself to feel better, that's helpful in quality of life. And then if your physicality is actually better, that's something to really examine. So instead of examining it directly as a form of healing, we've said let's just try to eliminate it or control for it in all of our experiments, because the only really meaningful healing is mechanistic or, you know, drug or surgical, you know, and so that's unfortunate. So I think now it's a really good time for us to say what you said. What is this placebo effect?
Yes, if we can do a guided meditation.
Yeah, how do we galvanize it? How do we harness it?
There we have some intention going to the, essentially it's a mind-body mix-up. We can experience healing because of our intentions. So someone explain that.
I have a whole framework that I was exploring for this because I think so many of us are so in alignment with this. And if we think about what placebo is, you know, we look at it from that behavioral psychological point of view. What is it? Okay, it's expectancy, it's conditioning, it's, you know, in the context of a clinical interaction, it's patient, therapist, you know, dynamic. Right? It's meaning and context. So if we explore all of those things, I mean, what are they really? They're all consciousness-based, right? So placebo, in my view, is heal. It's holistic elements that activate life force. It's all contextual, and so there are all these layers of understanding what we call placebo, whether we're talking about it from an interactional perspective, a self-generated perspective, you know, then an ongoing behavioral perspective. But where does it start? It starts with consciousness. So this idea that we're like controlling for consciousness in our studies is just, you know, it's so backwards.
Is there anything you'd like to say that people need to know? This is a good opportunity perhaps for our audience to find out more and how they do that, and if they want to get involved or just get information, what do they do?
Go ahead.
I would invite you all to join Chi, to check out our website and find amazing resources there for your own healing and your edification. The website is www.chi, Chi or Consciousness and Healing Initiative, .is. So www.chi.is.
Yeah, and I would say people can go to the Institute of Noetic Sciences website, which is noetic.org. And we also have an online library there that is about 20 of these consciousness and healing or energy medicine modalities, where we've done a 2 or 3 page review of the literature where you can find articles about it. And just to say, I think it's long beyond time that we begin to train the lens of science seriously on consciousness and how it might influence the physical world, starting with our own physical bodies and the people that we're with.
And I think gathering the data, this is what it seems the mainstream needs to be presented with. It seems like this is what you're doing and are doing. So Shamini and Cassie, thank you. Always a delight to see you both.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you for coming
Thanks
today.
so much, Nick.
All right.
Thanks.
That's Cassie Vieten and Shamini Jain.